Hi, Jade. Mr. Parrish here again. I'm going to take a few minutes and go over the response paragraph assignment, point out some areas to continue to work on as you move on to the summary reaction paper. I'll say the first part of your opening paragraph is very strong. I think your discussion here of women's historical situation in the workplace, well done. This sentence, the one that includes hotels, bars, and restaurants, is a little complicated sentence, so let me talk you through what I might do with this. You open up here, due to the pandemic causing shutdowns and social distancing, it affected, you might say here, hotels, bars, and restaurants were affected, period. These are jobs that women typically work in, and that might have sorted that sentence out. It's a sentence that looks like it's trying to do more than one sentence can accomplish. When you introduce the sources for the first time, okay, you come really close to doing it a very complicated way. That is to say, this is really punctuated correctly, according to Diana Bosch, and then you say who she is, and J.Mebane2, and then you say who she is. You probably need one more comma after center, and then you launch into the quote. I would advise not including this long explanation of who they are and where they work, since they both seem to work for the Women's Initiative Center. You might be able to say something like, according to Diana Bosch and J.Mebane2 with the Women's Initiative Center, I guess, for American Progress. That might shorten it a little bit, since I think they both work there. The more important thing going on here is the quote. Now, you say that women represent a staggering 77% of employees, saw significant job losses, representing 13. A couple of things about this. Because you're including a partial quote, not the full quote, one thing that happens is that grammatically this is just kind of awkward. I think you'd be better off paraphrasing this, putting this in your own words. The other thing, and I had to go to the original source and figure this out, because on the surface, the sentence is saying that women are 77% of employees. It turns out that women are 77% of school employees. That's what the sentence was about. Again, you can paraphrase numbers pretty easily by just converting them to the nearest whole number. So if you said something like, women are almost 80% of school employees, and because schools lost so many jobs, this was a significant number of jobs lost for women. That's kind of the point they're making. School employees, 13% of all the jobs lost in the recession were school employees. Women represent 80% of that 13% is what they were getting at. Then you switch to... the rest here, I think, as you introduce this in agreement with Bosch and Patke is probably not a really effective signal phrase. I suggested according to, although I see now that you'd used this up here. But again, chapter 2 of They Say, I Say has a lot of templates. And again, I don't know if you'd want to use agreement here because you're summarizing them. They're not actually agreeing with themselves. So Bosch and Patke go on to point out or go on to urge or argue for the need to pass economic stimulus. That could work pretty well. Now, structurally, I think one of the things that's going on here is that you may be establishing how women were affected by the COVID recession, but, and that seems to be on the other hand, when you introduce women of color also took, I think that might be your but moment here. And if that's the but, then I think the therefore has to be this call for meaningful stimulus and other kinds of action. And again, that's just kind of that as a result or consequently is another way to get that therefore, but that's a structure that really helps. All right, I'll just say your response paragraph I think is fine. Just grammatically, when a form of fighting peacefully for change is protesting. I kind of wanted this to be singular, not plural, is what I was trying to make the change there. But I think that original would have been accurate, or correct anyway. Let me take a quick look at the original. So just real quick on the the citation on the works cited page. You've got the author's names right. You got the title right. Where you have 2021, the original includes 1 February, so you'd want to include that as well. It's a really long article. I think you've got to the part where, again, I think you did a good job of pulling out of it what you wanted to. But especially with a long article, it's important often for you to impose that and, but, therefore structure on it to help that it make sense to your reader. So if we switch back to your works cited page, but one thing you'll want to do in these is create the hanging indent. I'll talk about that more in the coming weeks, but just right now, the hanging indent means that all the other lines after the first are indented. The first line isn't. So in other words, this would kind of hang out to the side and the other lines would be indented. And here's where instead you would have 1 Feb 2021. But I tell you, I'm really encouraged. I think you put a lot of work into this, and I think you're putting it together.